$15,000. That's the value of a walrus lying motionless on the Arctic ice. Enough to feed an entire village where the sun disappears for 40 days and temperatures drop to minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit. But to win that blood-red treasure, the Inuit and Chukchi must enter the most dangerous hunt on the planet, where a slip, a broken piece of ice, or a charge from a nearly 1-ton beast can end it all. In their language, walrus is a gift from the ocean. Meat for eating, fat for lighting, skin for crafting, tusks for trading. For Arctic communities, hunting walrus is not just a job, but a survival ritual that has lasted for thousands of years. But to the rest of the world, the sight of tons of meat being cut up on the ice is a horrifying ecological crime. Conservation organizations warn walruses are gradually depleting due to melting ice, climate change, and hunting. So where does the truth lie? Are walruses a legitimate source of livelihood or victims of greed and the black market for ivory? The Discover, butchering a $15,000 walrus on Arctic ice. The deadly hunt that feeds a town. At the far end of the Arctic, fragile wooden boats plunge into the cold sea. The wind howls, the waves crash, the ice cracks. Before them, the giant silhouette of a full-grown walrus. The Arctic Ocean is a bone-chilling cold. The temperature is just a few degrees above freezing, and if a person falls into the water, they would have only 5 minutes to survive before their body goes numb. The shout resounded. The spear pierced through the wind, piercing into the giant's body. The ice sea exploded in chaos. Weighing nearly 2,000 pounds, with skin as thick as armor, and tusks more than 3 feet long, just one hit could crush a boat. But the old hunter still held his spear tight, waiting for the moment the beast surfaced to catch its breath. The shout resounded. The spear pierced through the wind, piercing into the giant's body. The ice sea exploded in chaos. The walrus roared loudly, thrashed violently, and the waves were so high that they seemed to swallow the small boat. The ropes were so tight they were about to snap. The hunters had to brace themselves while the ice cracked under their feet. Every struggle of the animal is a fatal blow, and if you are careless, death will come as quickly as a cold wind. No one was allowed to hesitate. In the bitter cold, where any minute could turn a treasure into useless ice, the walrus carcass had to be dealt with immediately. The sharp steel blades glinted under the dim gray sky, the sound of metal piercing through the armor-like skin, revealing the ivory-white fat underneath, the sound of flesh being torn apart, the heavy sound of the blade hitting bone. Pieces of red meat, weighing dozens of pounds, were cut and piled on the cold ice. The heat rising from the fresh meat mixed with the strong fishy smell mixed with the cold wind, creating a taste that was both harsh and sacred. The strong men dragged each piece of meat towards the cellar, while the women quickly gathered the fat, cutting it into blocks to store or melting it for fuel. Children stood outside, wide-eyed, watching the adults' every move. It was not just work, but their first lesson in survival. The white tusk, more than a meter long, stood upright on the ice as a symbol of victory. No one cheered. Instead, the community fell silent in a solemn moment, as if to remember the animal's soul and pay tribute to the sea. Every part of the walrus is used: meat for eating, fat for heating, skin for making tools, bones for carving. Not a single piece is wasted. In their language, the walrus is not only prey, but also a gift of the ocean. Children grow up on the taste of walrus meat. The oil lamps in the huts are lit by walrus fat, and even ancient rituals are associated with this giant animal. For them, walrus hunting is not just a profession, but a survival ritual passed down from their ancestors. As Arctic ice melts twice as fast as predicted, walrus resting grounds disappear and herds dwindle. Meanwhile, demand for walrus ivory persists on the black market. The Inuit claim they only hunt enough to survive. Conservation organizations warn, if this continues, walruses will disappear from the earth.
Oh, just move from me, Cody.
Between two opposing positions, the big question arises. Where is the line between the human right to survival and the right to survival of an ancient wild species?
right here.
The Arctic sun sets slowly on the horizon, dyeing the ice red. The walrus tusks stand erect like landmarks, both trophies and symbols of a life and death exchange between humans and nature. And the question left for viewers: are we witnessing a continuing tradition of survival, or the final bell of a civilization at the end of the world? But the walrus is not the only species that feeds people in the frozen depths. If the walrus is the gift of the ocean for a village, then the whale is the giant treasure that feeds an entire nation. $100,000. That's the value of an adult whale, the giant creature of the ocean, both a source of life for Arctic coastal communities and a controversial symbol around the world. For the Inuit, it is a source of complete life. But in the eyes of the rest of the world, the sight of a whale being butchered is an unforgivable ecological crime. In the language of the Inuit, whales are the spirits of the sea. Their meat is used to get through the winter. Their fat is used to make oil to heat the village. Their giant bones are used to build house frames, and their skin and tendons are used to make tools for going to sea. But in the Arctic, where there are no supermarkets, no fields, and the cold can kill a person in 5 minutes, such criticism cannot warm a child or fill a family's stomach. Here, every javelin throw is not just a debate, but a matter of survival. The surface of the Arctic Ocean is rolling. On small, fragile wooden boats, Inuit hunters follow the giant silhouette of a humpback whale. Weighing over 40 tons and 50 feet long, each swing of its tail could sink the entire boat. But the old hunter still held the handle of the harpoon tightly, waiting for the one moment when the whale would surface to catch its breath. The cry rang out. The spear whistled in the wind, piercing the whale's skin. The sea exploded in chaos. The giant whale thrashed about. The waves rose as high as a wall of water. The ropes were taut. The boat rocked as if it were about to break. One slip of the hand, and everything would be buried at the bottom of the ocean. After many hours of struggling, the giant whale was finally exhausted. Red blood gradually spread on the icy sea surface. Not a minute was wasted. The whale, weighing tens of tons, was pulled close to the ice bank. Steel knives tore through the thick skin, revealing huge blocks of white fat. The sound of the knife cutting into the flesh echoed like a slash of history. Hundreds of pounds of meat were cut off and piled on ice. The fat was collected and drained off, ready to be refined into oil for lighting and fuel. The whole community gathers. Men divide their portions. Women collect fat. Children observe and relearn the 1,000-year-old ritual. Every part of the whale is used. Not a single piece is wasted. Two opposing positions, and the question remains open: the right to exist for humans or the right to live for whales. From walruses to whales, both Arctic giants are tied to human survival in the frozen wilderness. A walrus can feed a whole village. A whale can sustain a community all winter long. It is these scenes that have become the spark of global controversy. For the Inuit, it is a cultural ritual and a right to exist. And for the rest of the world, it is a symbol of cruelty and extermination. The final question remains open. Are we witnessing an ancient tradition of survival continue, or are the bells ringing for the disappearance of giant species at the ends of the earth?